want to say that if you are here, you are not here seeing Paul Preciado promote Dysphoria Monday, but I really recommend this book. So I say go get it. But thank you for being here. Today we have an honor, we have like an extra. In Jamaica, it's called brata. It means a little extra. We have two bookmakers present in our midst, and they are going to lead us off by reading for 5 minutes each. And then Mel will come and lead us to the war that is going to be fought by us. First, we have Jess Row. I'm told that is the correct name. And he's also my colleague. Jess?
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much to Claudia and John for inviting me to be part of For Real. And thanks so much to the staff of DAAD. Is that how you say it? Right? DAAD, for putting this exhibit together. So much labor went into putting together all the art and especially all the books in this space. So I'm so grateful for this that this space is here. So my project is called Is This the End? This is the End. And it began with, I'll show you, it began with me very badly crocheting the words, is this the end, in Morse code, which you can see here. Is this the end? And then I took that crochet work, such as it is, and wrapped it around a little book, which you can see in the back. In the middle of the book is the statement, "This is the end," with an image representing the overwhelming grief of Palestinians watching their families and friends being slaughtered in Gaza. Gaza is the backdrop to everything I'm about to read, which is a little excerpt from the essay. The collapse of the moral authority of the West, the again that has followed the endless repetitions of never again. To paraphrase Adorno, we have to ask the question, is writing possible today? What I'm about to read is bracketed by that question. For a novelist, any work with thread, yarn, or fabric is overdetermined. It's what we already do. A thread is the basic unit of narrative in the sense that a line is the basic unit of a poem, and a sentence is the basic unit of prose. The words used for creating fabric out of thread are also the words for narrative construction. Knit, weave, knot, skein, net, web. Another term for sentence is syntagm, S-Y-N-T-A-G-M, or in Greek syntagma, meaning arrangement in order or chain. Syntax, the word syntax is derived from syntagm. In the 50s and 60s, structuralist critics began using the term syntagmatic to describe narratives based on the premise that narratives have grammar and function the same way language functions. Crocheting this scarf, or scarf-like object, unwearable scarf, I'm writing a sentence that is meant to be read. The chaining of the crocheting itself, the knotting of chains of yarn into fabric, is mirrored by the chain of meaning in the sentence. Of course, the crochet work itself already is meaningful. Any made object is the story of its own making. The earliest writers were highly aware of the labor that went into constructing the flat surfaces, linen, papyrus, parchment, stone, clay, that they worked with. Sometimes they had to make those materials themselves. In that case, whatever they wrote was a double expression, the story of their labor in making the flat, neutral, exposed surface for the words they wanted to write on it, to say something. In the case of Is This the End, it's a triple expression as I write these words about the words I crocheted onto the surface that I also crocheted. In the book Ariadne's Thread, J. Hillis Miller writes, quote, "Paper is already thought of as tissue, a woven surface of crisscross lines or filaments. The word line comes from a root lino, meaning linen, flax. The text is scratched, cut, stamped, poured out, imprinted, or embroidered on a blank skin or outer surface that is already itself a woven fabric. Text comes from texere, to weave. Writing lays fabric on fabric in a hymnial stitching, joining or breaking, transgressing a line or frontier, tracing on the woven pattern another pattern, coarse or fine. In theory, anything that can be crocheted can be unraveled. The yarn can return to its previous shape unchanged. A story can also be unraveled, brought back to its beginning. One of the primary pleasures of life, which children appreciate much more than adults, is hearing a story over again, even after you know how it ends. This is the point of the word suspense, which also comes from the metaphor of string or thread, the state of hanging in the air like a tightrope walker. When my kids, Mina and Asa, were little, they demanded story after story before bedtime, and it soon became obvious to me why. Each story holds out the possibility of more suspense, more suspended time until the final sentence of having to turn out the lights and go to sleep, which, being the end of one day of life, feels a little like death. Mina turns 18 in June, and in the fall will leave for college, so endings and suspense have been much on my mind. For their 18th birthday, Mina asked me to write a last story about a mad scientist who lives in the Washington Square Arch a few blocks from our house in New York. I started writing those stories when we first moved to New York when Mina was 5. Mina still knows the significance of asking for one last story. Thank you.
And second, Melody Howse.
Worn out by the weight of what had been a long summer of pain and protest, where anger had risen and disillusionment had set in, as we reached the Spreewaldplatz, that final stop on the demo route, the site where the concluding speeches are made, where we get to rest our aching backs and tired arms, we could feel it, hear it, a vibration tugging us towards the speakers. It was immediate, this sensation of traction, something pulling us towards one another. Rhythms vibrating the floor as a sea of people locked onto its frequency. It is from this encounter that joy emerged, like a memory that leaves an impression on the senses. The clearing that is made on the sidewalk is filled with meaning. These clearings are meeting places, places to dance, to commune. The circle is the stage and the site of self-actualization within which we witness Black performative creativity. The circle alters spatial temporal linearity, opening as an aperture to other possible futures and ways of being together. The remarks of Sister Olarontoyin reminds us not only that we stand on the shoulders of giants, invoking the ancestors to reveal a pantheon, but that our libation lies within us. I take her words seriously here, and not as a mistranslation, not liberation, but libation, the ritual of pouring liquid to honor the dead, the gods, the ancestors, as a sign of respect. Here, that liquid is not coming from a bottle, but from our bodies. The libations we offer are our blood, sweat, and tears that fertilize the ground and link us together through a liquid archive. The same blood, sweat, and tears that join us in moments of collective mourning, as was the case with the demo, and in moments of rapture, as in dance. Dance is a practice that gives form to the amorphous thoughts and feelings that permeate the body and mind. It is the interior made manifest in dialogue with and at times in opposition to white society. A practice of autopoiesis, a practice that can be used to process atmospheric pressures, a reorientation that makes space to imagine our relationship to each other, the city, or to nature in a different register than either the offensive or the defensive. It is a practice of surrender, a state in which one can be and feel affected by the story unfolding before you or within you. It is a practice of conjure that produces a future orientation that shapes the imaginary, an embodied shift, a metamorphosis, a becoming, a shedding, an enfleshment, a desedimentation of the sinew. It is a Black aesthetic production of synthesis, a Black formation, a constellatory practice with the potential to tell us something other as a medium that arranges the ephemeral. What more And what differently could we know if instead we listened to the quiet language of the body, that visceral grammar of sweat and sinew, that archive of movement, gesture, and emotion, that quiet vocabulary of rupture and refusal. Thank you very much.
Mel Chin is awake. He is also unmoored and wake, but only in Times Square. Mel Chin is good. Mel Chin knows about inescapable history. Mel Chin is a multidisciplinary, collaborative, and conceptual artist. Mel Chin watched Mundo Kane as a child. Yes, that's true. But now, Mel Chin mostly hangs out with Helen. Mel Chin has lots of prizes, including the Workman Prize for trying to save humanity. And I have his award right here, right now. Yes? Yes. There it is. Your work suit. Mel Chin knows what a daisy cutter is. Ask him about Vietnam. Mel Chin knows anti-personal bombs complicates the Constitution. Mel Chin was born in Houston, Texas. But mostly Mel Chin is concerned with our heartbeat. Mel Chin knows the name of the game. It involves lots of guns. Mel Chin was my daughter's first dance partner when she was 3 years old. Also true. Mel Chin is in awe of the Kafka line, "The book must be an axe for the frozen sea within us." Unfortunately, Mel Chin is our ray of light and would like us to turn around when he commands it. Join me in welcoming Mel Chin.
Well, you don't have to listen to me, but yeah, it might be good to turn around because I was told, I had 30 minutes to introduce myself, and I'm just an artist, so you put together some slides, and they say, "What slides?" So then now you got to turn around, and so here we go again, okay? And we'll just go through this. Don't you worry one bit. All right. I didn't have a picture of Berlin. I had a picture of New York City. But that's okay because, and because when I first got there, I started going to the dumpsters and thinking about the Cathedral of Capital and all these amazing things. I was thinking all this stuff. I started collecting office chairs so that I could live a very modern existence in the city. So it shows how you can be influenced by where you are, right? But now I live in the country, in the woods. So then I have all these chairs. And what are you going to do with them? So I had one day to think of something, and it became unnecessary to think about someone else, not Mel Chin. It was this woman named Pat Fender who worked in an office most of her life that handed me one of these chairs. I said, I got to make something for her. Because this is about all these people that used to sit up there in New York City in these pools, and they sat in these chairs and they did the bidding for those cathedrals of capital. You see what I'm saying? And so when it came time, I had all these chairs, and I had to break them up and make a mess out of them. You have to do that sometimes. And then you start putting it back together and taking them out of the country and you take them and put them together, and you make a homage, a pool of light, you know? So this talk is just inspired by being here in Berlin and places and thinking about people, about memorials, and about rocks, about stones and things. So here you have that. That's just an update. But then you have this rock, and you have this pillow. Because when I was young, maybe I was 12 or 13, the world was kind of heavy and crunchy, nuggety. And I would put my head between cushions to block it out. But then as I got older, something else changed. How I become dense and hardened. And that's my ear on both sides. So it's the opposite effect. So that stone got upchucked from the storm that hit us in North Carolina. And we found that stone the size of my head that had been in the ground for 1 billion years, right? And it came to me and said, you know, this piece or this talk might be about portraits as well of yourself. And it's a crazy time. Don't y'all feel weird? Don't y'all feel weird? And so, hey, that's Faulkner. He's messed up. These are writers. O'Neill, F. Scott Fitzgerald, they're all messed up. But we live in this world of collage of things. And so sometimes it's about books. I saw books here, so I had to talk about books. So there's books that, you know, when my parents died, we lived in Houston, Texas. We had a little grocery store, and you could get these encyclopedias for $1, and you could build your encyclopedia. But our store lived in a neighborhood that didn't have the economy even to have that. So I always wanted a Funkin' Wag encyclopedia set. And I found this one in a drawer, and I started to cut it up because the information was kind of out of it, you know, from the 50s. And I'd cut it up. Okay, I know we have book lovers here. And look, I saved every scrap. So if you want to take apart those collages, you can put the whole thing back together. All right, so then get that out first. But it's about making, right? So I had to put together these collages. And they become all these things to represent your psychology and your hopes, your dreams. This is a strange thing about men with hair and men without. And they're just sniffing each other out. And lessons about the world. It's a family in Afghanistan. And of course, you have the normal Freudian kind of options. And became the Funkin' Wag from A to Z. All these volumes set up and recategorized. And what is all this about? What is all that about? What it was about was like taking information or images that may be dead because of the captions of the past and making them live again. So there's the option of life that making art can provide. I needed to do that, you see? And now this is a strange one. That's Mr. George Bernard Shaw, all right? And that's Edna St. Vincent Millay, right? So there they are. It's called 33 Men, 4 Women, because what I did is I found in one volume, they had all these pictures of dudes. So I just glued them all together and stacked them up. And there's only 4. But you know, Edna said something. She said, you know, if it's not one damn thing and then another. She said, it's one damn thing over and over. I think that she said it right. Oh, it's about rocks. So this is my tongue, because I'm giving you a tongue lashing, right? It's my tongue. And if you say, oh, he's Chinese, I've been to that Berlin museum. He must be relating to the shaman things from the Zhou dynasty, maybe. Cool, we know him, but you're wrong. So you make this damn thing, and what is this? This is called the shape of the lie. And what does it comprise of? You got a little bit of Socrates, right? Because what is a lie shape? It starts with a toe tip on truth, maybe, or reality. And then you have, he is again with a cigar. Then you have this gonad. This is a male lie. And it's also this other part that conspires with that little truth. And it shoots up, and this wrenching gut that Michael Gorsham, the doctor in New York City, talks about the enteric system of the gut brain, kind of squeezes it up and tries to stop these juices flowing. And then you have Mr. Henry Moore, his bronze, this reality of art, right? The solid stuff, and it's in bronzy stuff, right? And then you have, finally, Paranases, images of imaginary prisons, where a prophylactic over the imaginary is trying to stop this spike of reason from deflating the lie. But if you walk around the corner, you see this. That's the tongue. It's my tongue. But so what is about the bronze and the thing? Well, the tongue is made out of Native American pipestone. So this is a portrait of myself as an American. We're founded on a lie itself. So that tongue, so a piece of art about materials and stone, bronze, and ideas can just talk about a truth that is one truth, that all those treaties, never any one of them were ever respected. And it leads to these kind of things, these observations. This is a memorial, and he was killed by the bomb above. It's a full-scale replica of a 2,000-pound American bomb. It's a relationship of my complicity as an American to what's been going down. So you can make memorials, but you have to know where they're coming from. And you make it out of the dirt from behind my studio there in the country, which is a birthing hospital. And you put it together. And you think about this young man who didn't make it. And so there are earlier works, relating to these kind of things. And you don't make art or you don't make these memories or the memorials because you want to. You're compelled because the circumstances won't allow you to do anything else. The circumstances make you try to define the space that you live in. So you walk in, you see this thing covered in white muslin, and you walk up closer and you see a painting. And you see that it's kind of done a little Titian-like, and it's done militarily-like, and it's actually a portrait maybe of a president of the past. And this armor is a Apache attack helicopter that is riding over Gaza in the West Bank. And then you have something for the weepy eyes to look at, and it's there. It's just a spattering of things. It looks like flesh, but it's actually the West Bank turned on its side, rendered in kufiya, shredded and painted in encaustic to be like bits of people, a person. And it's a memorial, too, to this young woman who was the first suicide bomber, who was an emergency care worker who took her life and others with her. And this is a recent kind of news report y'all probably heard about. And you do these things, and it's not because I don't think I ever imagined myself ever being powerful enough to be a president or anything like that. And I don't think it's possible that I would be a suicide bomber. But you have to create work to describe the places that you live in as well, and you can't be silent about it. You know what I mean? So this work is called The Presence of Tragedy, and it was done maybe in the 90s. And if you look at it, it's my smile, it's my teeth again. So we're talking about portraits, right? So it's a portrait. But if you look closely, I found this in the Lower East Side. It was a tabletop enamel, and I chipped it away to create my teeth. But in the corners of the grin, I've pounded the metal until it exploded through. It shattered through. And it was a time when this was happening. And it's the bravery of those that remind you that you can't keep quiet, that you have to find the means to express what you're feeling. And right now, everything that's happening in the world, whether it's Yemen or Gaza, Syria, I feel that uncomfortability of that same smile or that grin or that fake grin that is being shattered. And I think it's time to try to not be quiet and try to recapture our humanity in any way possible. So anyway, this is just some things about rocks, about symbols and things as an intro. All right? Okay.
I thank you for that. Very important statement. And I love that you framed it in terms of a portrait, because there's no separation between, at least I don't think so, between the times we're in and who we are. And that sense that the times are really shaping ourselves, or what we can believe of ourselves. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your relationship to culpability and portraiture. The building of the tongue to the mouth to silence. Metaphorically, as a poet, I really appreciate that. And I saw that as a message to us. But I also, in much of your work, you do talk about culpability as a kind of driving force. So I wondered if you could go there.
Well, I have to go and say I'm complicit because I am. Because I happen to live somewhere in the world that sponsors what's going on. And you have to start with yourself. And I always even say it more often now because of the thumb is on you if you say it. If you say Gaza or genocide or anything else, it's on you. And I'm trying to seek the ways where I can speak about it because I can't afford to be silent because you're shredding any aspect of what your whole life has been about to you feel it being mashed away. So you kind of find the means. You have to be kind of somewhat cagey. And maybe by just saying, it's me, because it's true, I can do that. I don't want to. So it's finding, it's funny, George W. Bush used one word in his vocabulary. I know you're probably too young. He was a president in the past. But he used the word strategery. And that strategery is necessary for your survival internally as well as externally in the world. So, yeah, I think you have to start with, you got to blame yourself because it's almost like if you didn't know about it, what did Chomsky say? If you didn't know about it, you weren't aware, that's all.
In terms of, you use the word cagey, but the thing that I have always marveled about relative to your work is how, and this is not even a question, it's a bow down, really, but how you manage to move into the conceptual space. I think you and David Hammonds are the two people I feel can bring things into a kind of simplicity without losing any of its complexity. And I have always wondered, how do you do that? I mean, are there places, has there ever been a project where you couldn't get there?
Yeah, there are, but eventually you get there because you realize you can't. I think it comes from I remember visiting New Orleans right after, it would have been almost a year afterwards because I remember saying, I got to go down. And I wasn't going there to make art. This was back in 2005, 2006. I went down to just see what I could do to help. And based on the interviews I had with people who had suffered through the storm and the lack of support, I felt, for the first time in many years, I felt inadequate. And that's a powerful thing when you got an ego and they look at me, I can do shit. No, you cannot. Because you're inadequate to respond to what has gone down. But that can drive you. A lot of people talk about inspiration, what inspired you. I said, it's been a long time since I've been inspired. I think the world compels you into action, compels you, and you just, and that's part of the survival routine, to be compelled. And I remember just going back and forth, talking about awards. I think it caught me for my first doctorate, honorary doctorate. It's not a real one. And I was at RISD, and they said, the plane's going to take you to Rhode Island from New Orleans. I said, no, I can't go. I don't deserve it, because I can't respond to this. Why would I go? And luckily, I went, and I looked at a sea of people. I said, I realized it wasn't just about me, it was about we. And I had to go back and start my research. And then, because if you're searching, and I think this is what I always like what you pointed out in your book about James Baldwin saying, the job description of the artist, right, is to uncover the questions that are being hidden by the answers. And that's inspiring. I always use that because that was my job, to find, and then what else? And I found out that half of the inner city childhood population were poisoned with lead in the soil before the storm, and there was no damn thing going to respond to that. So this kind of injustice propels you. And we started a project called fundrid.org that was not about me. I just became a delivery person for like 500,000 drawings of $100 bills that children had made across the country. So we could have access, and you also mutate the strategy. We had an armored truck, we had all this stuff, and it wasn't an art performance. It was more we had that, but it evolved so that we could use this hand-drawn capital so a child could meet their representative to speak to them directly. So you become at service to something. So I think about the strategy I have is to think about nothing should be so solid in terms of concept that it can't evolve and mutate according to situations. And then the poetry can arise.
I'm being generous. Does anyone have a question?
You want to turn around again? I'm just full of it today. It's just Berlin.
It's Berlin.
It's Berlin.
This idea of inadequacy, for me, I have to say, I feel that is the thing I feel now. And I don't think I've ever felt it as much as I feel it now. Because everything continues no matter what you say or don't do or don't do, or where you go or don't go, and it just keeps going. And we have gotten to a point in time where language no longer means anything. I mean, it used to mean something. Somebody would say, that's against the law, and then you would have a case, and Supreme Court would do something, and you were like, okay. But now you say ceasefire, and then the ceasefire doesn't mean anything. You say something. So I wonder if you could think a little bit more about this moment. I know you addressed it, relative to inadequacy.
Yeah, that's why I brought up a piece that I'd done when I felt inadequate in the face of watching friends or knowing the friends were dying during the AIDS crisis in New York City. And that same feeling keeps coming up. And that's why I mentioned Miss Millay and her statement. It's over and over. And then you look at the whole arc of history, is that it's always been this way. This colonization, this disrespect, this law that is convenient when applied to certain people. And it's never been different. So maybe it's about using the opportunity to shake yourself into this. Right now, I'm in a moment of deep self-critique Because then what had cushioned me to not think about that or address that? So I'm compelled again, but maybe I'm not compelled about like there's also the arc of what your career might say. It's in your name and your notoriety, or what the minimal amount compared to many, but that maybe that's also a kind of strategic prison around your possibilities, and to question that. So right now, the way I'm thinking about things, I always tell people, if I tell you, I have to kill myself, because it's. But I do think that it's an opportunity to maybe question everything I've done, but if not question everything I've done, to question the terms that I have been doing it under. Mm-hmm. Maybe the term of self of art, maybe the place that frames you in a specific way to make you inadequate to address things. So be cautious about the things you've adopted for yourself, I say. Mm-hmm. I'm just talking about me, that I'm a very suspicious mood right now, based on the onslaught that every day I wake up and every day it's just an endless stream of disappointment and sadness, you see.
You said that war and torture removes the capacity for speech.
Yeah.
And the unmaking, and makes the unmaking of the world. And that art was a form of making a world. Do you still stand behind that?
Well, now, that term comes from Elaine Scarry, right? The Body and Pain. In the 80s, she wrote this amazing book that talks about the analysis of war and torture is the removal of language, because it absolutely destroys the capacity for that transmission. So that is the unmaking of the world, and the remaking of the world is imagination. And see, I have to believe I'm in that camp. That's what I mean. I think that because that's the only place, because something, the unmaking is so easy. It's so definitive, and it's happening by being done by others. And you also have to think that it's within you at the same time, the destructive capacity. So this kind of it's kind of a downer attitude now I say it, right? I'm sorry. But that's the psychology that you have to wrestle with, right?
But I don't think you brought the downer in. I think it was in. It came in by itself.
Okay. Coolio.
Any other questions? We have a quiet crowd today.
Y'all can be mad at me. I mean, I don't care. Mm-hmm. I'm gone. It's cool.
All right, I have another question while people get less intimidated. Do you think of yourself as an American artist?
Yes. Yeah. I think it was. I don't. I'm. Yeah, I have to think that way.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I am. You're born in Texas, you get all messed up. It's a ruinous to your psychology and your well-being. So, okay, there you have it. Yeah. Yeah, I think. And to be American is to be this kind of, maybe that's the thing, you're delusional in your belief that it might stand for something, or did. But then the more you research, it never really did.
Right.
So, it's like, so then you have to say, well, then maybe it's time to create, in the age of climate change, I feel we have to create climates. You create a climate for that capacity to maybe get there, you see. I'm talking about more social climates. When I talk about climate change, usually the meteorological and the thing that will destroy us all. It looks like it's going to get there. That this climate is one thing, but if you don't have you're packed with human beings, and you won't have it either. So you have to do it. You have to do double duty. I'm sorry, you just can't take one calls. You know, that's what you learn. So, yeah, it's rough. I'm up to age. I'll be gone soon. So if I talk to young people like you, the first thing I should have said before when I saw your age group here, I'm sorry. Because, you know, we had all these dreams and all these possibilities, and we were unsuccessful.